A very big welcome to Maurice Crespi, who's joining us for our discussion on NFTs today. And Maurice is a partner in the firm Schindler's Attorneys. He's a highly experienced corporate litigation attorney and was actually, very interestingly enough, I'm sure you'll all find, the lead attorney in achieving the legalization of marijuana in South Africa. So well done on that, Maurice. In 2017, Maurice founded Schindler's blockchain department that specializes in fintech, blockchain technology, and blockchain law. Sorry, I had to write this down because this does not roll easily off the tongue. But you've also formed Virtual Nation Builders, NFT Auditors, Disputed, Collab Technologies, Schindler's Forensics, and Shintech, along with a whole host of pro bono and conservation companies. So that's a very impressive list. And with such an impressive list of achievements, I'm very much looking forward to hearing your talk on NFTs. Great.
Thanks so much, Gogh. And yeah, thanks to everybody for joining today. So as Gogh said, I've been a litigation attorney at Schindler's since 1998. 2017 was where everybody started paying attention to the crypto world. And that's where I decided to dive into blockchain and understanding what underpins the technology. But it really kicked off in 2019. I was at the Singularity Conference at Kyalami, and I was trying to work out whether there were any opportunities in the context of the convergence of tech and law. And as I was getting into my car after the conference, it occurred to me that there may very well be, and that is in relation to a dispute resolution system that relies on the wisdom of the crowds. We started a collaboration there and then. It grew with corporate partners. There were about over 1,000 employees involved in it. And beginning of last year, we started hearing from Silicon Valley. We had partners in Silicon Valley that the next big thing would be a virtual layer of governance. I started COBRA, which stands for COVID Business Rescue Assistance. It's the biggest pro bono initiative in South Africa. We're working with government, Minister Abrams at the time, in relation to South Africa's digital revitalization strategy. And through that, the King of the Ndebele Nation approached us and asked for assistance in relation to land and opportunities that could arise from the tribal land that's housed in tribal trusts. And we jumped at the opportunity because we were working with government in relation to the digital revitalization. But with government, you have the PFMA. And the PFMA is obviously a problem because everything has to go out to tender and there's certain protocols. Whereas with the King, it was very, very different. And that's where we got into we started looking carefully at NFTs and opportunities that would arise in the NFT space. Now, today we're talking about art, but I'll also be taking you through how NFTs can really be utilized as legal instruments. So to kick off, I know there are going to be quite a few of you who understand blockchain and understand NFTs, but chances are the vast majority of you have absolutely no clue. So I'm going to start with the very, very basics. And what I do is I approach it from really a layman's or a attorney's perspective. The reason we used to, well, you probably do, the moment somebody mentions blockchain or NFTs, you close up, because the acronyms and the technical terms that are thrown your way just make it super, super confusing. So I prepared a short presentation, and I think to kick off, what's really, really important is to understand that there's a big distinction between cryptocurrencies and blockchain. What happened is in the early 2007, in fact, the white paper on blockchain was published and Bitcoin was published and Bitcoin was released. And Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency that works off blockchain. it doesn't mean that blockchain only relates to cryptocurrency. So just bear that in mind, that today we're going to be discussing blockchain, which is very, very, very distinct to cryptocurrency. So the way to see what, in 2017, a group of very, very clever people got together and they formed the Ethereum network. Now, to understand what blockchain is I like to use the analogy of a giant hard drive that is created around the world. When I say a giant hard drive, what the Ethereum guys did is they said, what if we incentivize people around the world to use their computer and give up a portion of their hard drive space for an incentive? In this case, it's Ether, and they give up their hard drive space to allow for that space to be utilized as a node where the information on the blockchain would get stored. So as an Ethereum node, what you do is you have your regular computer and you give up that hard drive space, and the blockchain or portions of the blockchain are saved on that. And the data there is replicated around the world. So in effect, these nodes create a network that spans the entire globe. And if one hard drive, or let's say 1,000 of those hard drives, get destroyed, the other hard drives have a copy of the data. So this hard drive is what is often referred to as immutable. It's there, it cannot be destroyed. And in fact, because of that, it's going to be around so long as the internet or the Ethereum network's around. So where we're talking about art, the moment art certainly has a lifespan, the question is how many years or how many thousands of years will it last, but there will be an expiry date. The expiry date when it comes to art on the blockchain is so long as the internet is around, so long as the Ethereum network is around. Now, I said I wouldn't go into technicalities, but I just briefly want to explain how the blockchain works. You'll see that there's a block, and next to it, there's a strange number. That is called a hash. And that hash is generated by taking the data from a block and putting it through a cryptographic algorithm, which generates that number. Now, that number over there, every single time you put the data through, you'll get the same number. And that number then gets stamped onto the next block. So the next block can't exist without the previous block's number. And that's what's meant by immutable. The data that's written on there cannot be deleted. It carries on being written as blocks, and you can't hack a previous block because the subsequent blocks cannot exist without that previous block. And that's what's known as immutable. The notion of decentralized, the words there, is the data is not in one central repository. So if you think of Visa and MasterCard, they control your data. In this case, the data is not controlled by anybody. Yes, you have a node, but the moment you turn that node off, the blockchain still exists, and all the data that is written on the blockchain remains there. Now, this is quite an important aspect of blockchain technology, because you do not have a trusted intermediary. When we say a trusted intermediary, a bank is a trusted intermediary, Visa is a trusted intermediary. Because you do not have a trusted intermediary involved, the control of the data is not in the hands of, let's say, Visa or MasterCard. They can't just turn you off. The blockchain cannot be turned off. Everybody will still have access to the data. And incidentally, as your data written on the hard drive can be seen by everybody unless it's encrypted. And if it's encrypted, what one will see is the numbers and letters in relation to the cryptographic hash. the way it works, and the wallet, as it's called, contains your private key. So if you have a wallet on Luno, they actually contain your private key, which talks to a public key. And that is just how they identify you as the person who controls that information. Again, I didn't want to get too technical, but I felt I'd have to mention that. So what is an NFT? An NFT stands for non-fungible token, which is distinct from a cryptocurrency, which is fungible. Now, fungible means that there are many of the same. So fiat currency is a fungible. If I lend 10 rands to you and in 2 weeks' time you give back another 10 rand note, it's of no consequence to me. I'm happy. Whereas an NFT is a one of a kind. It's like a centenary coin that only one's being minted, and there are no others. So if I have a centenary one of a kind 1 rand coin and I give it to you and you give me back another 1 rand coin, I'm not going to be too happy. So the term token is misleading. I think the best way to describe what in fact a token is really its control over your data set. So imagine you were to scan a piece of art and it's in 3D, and that piece of art, you store the 3D image onto this global hard drive, being the Ethereum network, and the others incidentally, but the Ethereum is the most famous and it's the biggest. So you decide to store the painting on this hard drive, and you can control it and you can manipulate it in the sense that you can't delete it, but you can, in some instances you can, but I won't get there, but you can manipulate it. So you've now scanned and stored that piece of art on the hard drive. Now that piece of art may become valuable, as we've seen. They can be worth millions of US dollars. Now the payment that is made when a token is sold, there isn't actually a token. What's sold is control over that data. So it becomes yours and you're in possession of that data. And to give you control of that data, you pay me a fee. So the notion of it being called a token is really just to try and bring it into the real world so people understand it a lot better, but there is no token. It's control of the data on this giant hard drive. And if you want to relinquish control of the data, you can pay a fee. The millions of tokens out there, people are trying to sell them, they're unable to sell them, but obviously you get the art that's really, really valuable. And those get sold for millions of dollars. You get different types of tokens. These are really, I'm just mentioning them to you because they actually have different risks associated with them. So if you see on top, you have the ERC20, that is your standard Bitcoin type Ethereum token. Then you have the 721, which is really used for NFTs. But the reason I put that out there is you'll see that the ERC 777 actually builds on the ERC20, and it says it allows people to build extra functionality on top of tokens, such as a mixer contract for improved transaction privacy or an emergency recover function to bail you out if you lose your private keys. And that would be distinct to the ERC20. So again, don't concern yourself around the fact that this sounds pretty technical. I just wanted to highlight that there are different risks associated with these tokens. Before I actually get to this, before I get to the use cases, I also want to mention that on this Ethereum blockchain, on this giant hard drive, not only can you store information on it, but you can actually write programs. You can write apps on the hard drive. And you writing an app on the hard drive is known as a smart contract. And a smart contract is something that you can build into the NFT, and that smart contract will remain in place so long as the NFT is in existence, which could be in eternity. So the smart contract that you can build into it, and incidentally, the oldest form of a smart contract in the real world is a vending machine, where you put a 5 Rand coin in and you get your Coca-Cola out. There's no human intermediary, so there's no one to sue. It will just happen. And we hear of smart contracts, that's the game changer. It's a massive game changer. When you hear blockchain is going to change the world, it's because of smart contracts where a trusted intermediary is not required. So the most common smart contract that you'll find in the NFT space is a royalty or commission smart contract. If I mint an NFT, and we've minted, incidentally, on behalf of Lily's Leaf, Mandela's warrant of arrest, 1961 warrant of arrest, that's going on sale in Cape Town in a week's time. Now that NFT's been minted, and the smart contract we built into it is that every time that the warrant is unsold or sold to a third party in the future, the smart contract insists that the original owner, in this case would be Lily's Leaf, gets paid a royalty. In that case, it's 10%. So the implications of that are massive. Imagine in the legacy legal world, what would be required from a legal point of view to bind an initial purchaser of an asset to agree that if the purchaser sells that asset to another purchaser, to a third party, the third party must agree that if the third party sells it to another party, they're bound by the initial agreement, and commission has to be paid to Lily's Leaf. Now, it's inconceivable that would last more than 3 or 4 generations. 4 sales down, the purchaser is not going to know who the original owner is or was, and chances are they won't honor that agreement, and it would have to go to court. And that's a good example of where you'd have to have it. There's a trusted intermediary who's the purchaser, and the moment it's in a human's hands, there's a trust relationship, and that trust relationship isn't really strong, particularly in a case like that. Whereas if you were to build in a smart contract that pays you the 10% commission on every sale, you're guaranteed to get that 10% commission in the next 100 years, next 500 years. Every single time it's sold, your crypto wallet will increase in value by the 10% commission on each sale. Now, there are many examples of smart contracts. The most complex example that's being utilized today is you can build organizations, decentralized, autonomous organizations. And in terms of those smart contracts, you can actually have an entire organization, an entire company operate off a smart contract. So let's say somebody hits certain KPIs, the bonus is automatically paid without reference to HR, without having to go through finance. It would just get paid. Another example where we're very active is in the property space. I mentioned to you the King of the Ndebeles. What we're doing there is the property is owned in trusts, tribal trusts. The tribal trusts are a legacy of the past. The land was put in these trusts and is administered by the trustees of these trusts. And the one thing you cannot do is sell the land out of these trusts. There are limitations to it. So think very similar, and it's analogous to Waterfall Estate in Midrand, Johannesburg. There, you're not buying the actual property. What you're doing is you're buying 99-year leases over each dwelling. Now, what we're doing is we're doing exactly that, but what we're doing is we're creating NFTs. We're creating land right NFTs in substitution of the 99-year lease. What we are saying is the 99-year lease terms, the normal contractual terms, can be embedded in the NFT's metadata. And a transfer of that NFT amounts to a transfer of the property in terms of the agreement. So what we're doing is we're creating a parallel deeds office utilizing these NFTs. We've also been approached by the mayor of the city of Cape Town, who approached me last year in November and said, please, can you create a parallel deeds registry in respect of the shack dwellers in Khayelitsha? And there what we're doing is we are taking We're creating addresses through unl.global. If you look them up, they've created a grid, a 3D grid of the entire world, a digital twin of the entire globe. And each square centimeter of that grid is an NFT, and data can be stored on that NFT. And it works with satellite images. You set, let's take in the case of a shack dweller, you take the address, you map it out, you create the NFT, and that NFT then is embedded with the legal rights. So you see the importance of the convergence of tech and law. The property rights are embedded in that, and then that NFT can be transferred quite easily utilizing a phone. It's as simple as that. I mean, I always say if the technology exists today to transfer a property at a supermarket, that's how easy it could be. Why do we have attorneys? Why do we have conveyancers charging people a bomb for these transfers? You know, even with Waterfall, you don't pay transfer duty there, but you still have to pay for the attorneys. So in the case of Waterfall, what could happen there is you have a parallel deeds registry, you have your property rights embedded, the 99-year lease embedded in the NFT, and it could just be transferred as easy as sending an SMS on your phone. Now, in that case, the smart contracts could talk to paying transfer duty, if there was transfer duty, to SARS. So in other words, you won't be able to transfer the NFT unless that's paid. The percentage that's due to the homeowners association would be paid in terms of the smart contract, and any other payments that need to be made can be embedded in the smart contract. So the homeowners association doesn't have to worry about whether the attorneys are going to pay them their commission, collect and pay them the commission. It's the same with estate agents. You can have it that on transfer, the smart contract pays the estate agent, and they don't have to rely on the attorneys for that purpose. So what we've done is we've created in the legal realm, and this is very different to the art realm and the cryptocurrency realm. We've created instruments, legal instruments that are embedded, and we utilize blockchain NFT technology for those. I'll take you through them. A net asset option. You can create a derivative. You can create an option to buy a real world asset. So last year we did the first NFT rhino horn together with the first heritage NFT, which was Oliver Tambo's gun spy pen. Now, with the rhino horn, not knowing that it was controversial, we're originally going to sell the actual rhino horn as subject to the person who holds the NFT presenting a permit to us. So we'll take the actual rhino horn, hold it in escrow. The NFT owner would know that all they need is a permit. They present the permit to us, and the real world asset then gets transferred to them. And that's what a NAO would be. We didn't do that because we didn't realize it was really controversial in the, even though the horns were ethical, there's a massive debate around that. So we withdrew that, but it's a good example of how a NAO can be used. A NASTY is an NFT asset sales transaction instrument. A PAN, perpetual assignment NFT, that's if you want to assign copyright, if you assign art. In most cases, and I'll get there, when it comes to purchasing of an NFT on an exchange, you're actually not buying any rights in relation to the copyright. You own the NFT, but you don't own the art. There's the property assignment of rights NFTs. I've spoken to you, personal identity NFTs. There's a big move at the moment on the blockchain to create sovereign IDs, as they're known. So that sovereign ID can be tapped into by any organization around the world. It would, can you imagine what it would do to KYC issues? You'd have one sovereign ID, it would be updated, and every institution can actually go into the blockchain and pull that data in respect of you. Value transfer NFTs. Now that's quite an important one in the art space. I'm going to give you an example of some thinking around that. Fractional ownership NFTs, what we're doing is we're taking shares of companies. Let's take a private company, a small company. We put it in a trust. It's a token trust. The beneficiaries of that trust are the token holders. So you can create immediate liquidity in relation to any size company in just in a matter of weeks. And at present, it's unregulated. So you can literally compete with the stock exchange today without there being any regulations in place. And the stock exchange is really a worldwide stock exchange because you can put it on international exchanges and create liquidity over those exchanges. Do the same with a small house, a small property. If you were to have a 1-bed in Santon and you wanted to fractionalize it, you could mint 1 million NFTs and sell each one for R1. You'd create liquidity. The token is in fact fungible, though we refer to it as an NFT. It becomes fungible because there are 1 million of the same NFTs representing a fraction. And that NFT can be traded, it'll increase in value. And what one also has, which is quite interesting, is you can pay out what's analogous to dividends by way of what's called an airdrop. So similar to airdrop on Mac, it's called the same. You can airdrop additional cryptocurrency to whoever the NFT owner is around the world. What's nice about the fractional ownership NFTs is you have 100% collateral because there's an underlying property, whereas if you buy a lot of the cryptocurrencies out there, there's no collateral. They're just very often pie in the sky. So in the art world, what is the value transfer NFT? When I met with the Hollard leadership, I mentioned to them that I came up with this. In the blockchain space, you can be very, very creative. This is all new. So, go home tonight and think of use cases because there are millions out there. There's so many opportunities that we haven't thought of and that are out there and can be exploited. This is like the World Wide Web happening again. That's how big it is. A value transfer NFT, as I said, what would happen if you were to create an insurance product in relation to art and you were able to get the original owner of the art to agree to create an NFT, and that NFT talks to the original work of art and it looks like it. So over here, I've used the example of the Mona Lisa. You have the real Mona Lisa. Leonardo da Vinci says, very happy for you to create an NFT. I'll assign the rights of this art to the NFT holder. And now that NFT is probably not worth very much. There's the original piece of art. The assignment would probably be conditional on the value transfer NFT of an event happening. In this case, the event would be the physical Mona Lisa painting burning up, disappearing, no longer existing. Now, if that were to happen, and we've seen what these NFTs are going for, what would happen to the value of the original authentic Mona Lisa NFT that used to talk to the original real world Mona Lisa? The value, presumably, I'm just throwing it out there, of that NFT would increase. Now, the insurance company, the underwriters, could actually say to the original owner, we'll keep that NFT and we'll sell it on the market, which would mean that you'd be able to recoup, similar to scrap when it comes to a car accident. You could keep that, sell it, or you could say to the insured, here's the NFT, we'll give it to you in lieu of actually paying out a premium. We've seen that this NFT value has shot through the roof since the Mona Lisa has burnt up, so you don't have to pay out at all. Now, I'm no expert. It's just a concept. It's just a principle. I thought it would be quite interesting to explore, because if you do have a value transfer, and incidentally, the reason I thought of it is we've been asked by a hotel in Cape Town to NFT their art. And it occurred to us that if the hotel were to burn down, the NFT value would go up. The extent of the value, I've got no clue. It's anybody's guess. We'll see. So just potential risks, potential loss. These NFTs are immutable, but there's still risks associated with them. So here's some examples. So we've got, according to a recent research conducted by a team of Australian and Chinese universities, 99% of ERC20 tokens created before 2017 have vulnerabilities and are exposed to an attack called fake deposit that makes them unsafe, especially on the exchange side. This type of attack exploits a bug in the token balance, and unless check is put on some functions such as transfer raw and transfer from, there's a risk that the ERC20 will end up in the accounts of criminals who invoke these functions. Now, fortunately, an ERC20 is for a cryptocurrency. It's not for an NFT, but you'll have seen that there are other tokens and the newer tokens that mitigate that risk. And in fact, since 2017, the tokens subsequent to 2017 don't have that risk. So now, from an insurance point of view, it's the kind of thing you'd want to check. You'd want to become an expert in the space, and you'd want to say, look, there's going to be an additional weighting on the premium. The premium is going to be higher if it's a pre-2017 ERC20 token, as an example, because there's a risk in that, and the premium, because of that risk, conceivably could be higher. A lost private key. What if you lose your private key? We've heard of that. We've heard of the guy who's trying to dig up his hard drive in the UK, or the other guy who forgot his password for his hard drive. What you're told is that these hard drives have the Bitcoins in them. They don't. They don't have the Bitcoins. The Bitcoins are on the blockchain. What they have are your private keys, and your private key gives you access to that Bitcoin or Ethereum on the blockchain. So if you lose the private key, it's game over. No one is going to have access to the blockchain, to the value on the blockchain in relation to the cryptocurrency. So there's a huge risk associated with that. We've heard of people losing their keys. There are also ways to mitigate that. The most common, and you'll find this with most wallets, new wallets, like for instance, the MetaMask wallet, what you do is you create it, but they'll also give you 20 words, and you write those 20 words and you keep them in your safe next to your will. And those 20 words will give anybody access to your private key on any MetaMask wallet or any wallet out there. Incidentally, you get two types of wallets. You get hard wallets, which are physical wallets where your private key is actually stored on this physical object. And then you have exchanges such as Luno, where they hold your private keys on your behalf, but they can get hacked. And if they're hacked and your private keys are stolen and they're gone, you won't have access to them. And only the thief will have access to those private keys. So this is a huge risk. You can forget your private key. You can forget the password to your MetaMask wallet. You can lose your 20 words. There's a risk associated with that. And this risk over here, we talk of Bitcoin, it's the exact same risk when it comes to NFTs. And of course, there are ways to mitigate that risk. For instance, the 20 words, make sure that the 20 words are stored in a secure database. You may not want it in your safe. Make sure that, you've got to insist that those 20 words have to be presented, or that have to be a forced entry into the safe for somebody to access those 20 words. And if there's no forced entry, well, there could be a ground in the policy to not pay out. Those are the kind of issues that one can explore. NFT theft. AJ Trier is used to getting her art stolen, published without attribution, ripped off on t-shirts, and even printed on phone cases. But when she opened her inbox on the 4th of Jan, Trier was overwhelmed with alerts about her art being ripped off on an entirely new scale. Her viral Vincent van Gogh style paintings had been turned into nearly 86,000 NFTs. So in this case, it would be the artist who would be insured in relation to stolen art as a result of the NFTs being created and sold. And in law, the artist would in fact have a claim against the seller of those NFTs for the royalties received. And that's something else that could be taken into consideration, because those rights could be assigned to the insurer for the purpose of actually recovering that loss. Now, the question is there an actual loss? Is there a diminution in value of the original art as a result of the NFTs being published? Conceivably, there may be, and that's something else that could be insured. I recommend that you guys go to Twitter and find NFT thefts. What they do is they're actually documenting plagiarism, fraud, and other issues in the NFT crypto scene. If you see scammers selling stolen work, let us know. Is it over yet? So this is a great source of information to assess risks and to see exactly what's happening out there and potential products that can be created in the NFT world. What we've done is we've actually created NFT auditors. I make mention here of scarcity because one of the NFT auditors is a joint venture between Zuba Lawler law firm in LA, America, and Schindler's Attorneys in South Africa. And what we're doing is we've seen a gap in the market, and that is the confirmation, the auditing of NFTs. So if an NFT is sold, we audit that NFT to make sure and to give comfort to whoever's purchasing it that the NFT, for instance, the copyright is indeed being assigned in terms of an assignment agreement. When NFT auditors were called in to audit the rhino horn, they prepared an entire report, including an inspection of the horn at the fidelity safes, making sure that the horn was DNA'd. The owner of the NFT has the DNA profile of the rhino, and it's audited to ensure that A, the rights to the NFT are being assigned, but B, that it is in fact a digital representation in 3D of the rhino horn. And it's quite important because that would naturally increase the value of the horn. Now, what we did with the horn is scarcity is quite important. How do we ensure that the person who mints the NFT creates the horn NFT? In that case, it was Black Rock Rhino Conservation, where they purport to say, they say that they'll only mint one. What's stopping them from minting 1,000 and then selling 1,000 after having given you an undertaking that they'd only mint one? What NFT auditors does is we take affidavits and we put controls in place, so we actually make it a crime for the purpose to provide that representation and to renege on the representation. But here's something else that could diminish the value of an NFT. If a client, an insured, were to purchase an NFT, it's only one of a kind, there's only one Mona Lisa NFT, and the next thing that the person who minted the NFT decides to mint another 10,000 NFTs to make a quick buck, that's another loss that could be taken into account in the insurance space. I'll see, I'm just picking up questions now. I'll get to them now. Legal issues arising from NFTs and art, potential claims by holder of rights and underlying work. The artist or other right holders might opt to bring a claim against the sellers or creators of the NFTs for copyright infringement. I mentioned that as a potential risk because the original art, there could be a diminution in value, and there's a potential claim in relation to the royalties. Potential claims by buyers of NFTs, because the NFTs are a barely developed area of commerce. It is possible at some extent NFT holders may allege they misunderstood the extent to which they acquired rights when they purchased the NFT. Now, believe it or not, I would say 99% of NFT owners out there are completely unaware of the rights that they purchased, and chances are they have not bought the rights that they believe to have bought. Now, that's also quite important, and that's where NFT auditors comes in when it comes to art, when it comes to IP. We have a team of attorneys who ensure that the artist, if the artist is going to say that they sign the NFTs, that in fact happens. So we had an audit in relation to Mandela art. We were pulled in by a studio in LA, and we struggled to get the original artist to make certain confirmations. So there was, in that case, a qualified audit report that wasn't great. It wasn't first prize, but it was good enough in relation to the assignment agreement. Everything looked correct, but the original artist we couldn't get hold of, and that's where it was qualified. And that obviously then would diminish the value of the NFT because it was qualified, and they're still trying to make a plan to get an unqualified report. But here is a mechanism to mitigate risk. If you were to insure NFTs, and part of the product is to ensure that there has in fact been an assignment of copyright, then you can insist on an NFT audit report to be conducted prior to the purchase or subsequent to the purchase, prior to the insured becoming insured, prior to the insured taking out the policy, and that would obviously affect the premiums. Exchange hacking, I mentioned that. This is probably the biggest problem. This is the biggest risk. Threat actors have stolen and flipped high-value NFTs from users of the world's largest NFT exchange, OpenSea. Now, this happened last month, and I was targeted as part of the scam. And let me say this to you, it was probably the best phishing scam that I'd ever seen. It took me, what it said is that OpenSea was moving to a new blockchain, and as a result, all NFTs that were not moved, they said there's too many NFTs, too many rubbish NFTs out there. And they said that you've got to move to this new chain, otherwise you'll lose your NFTs. And to move your NFTs, you'd have to get into your MetaMask wallet. And what happened is your MetaMask wallet is an extension, and you open it up there. But what happened is it went to another site, but it still said Google extension, and it asked for your 20 words. The moment you see that, you know it's a phishing scam, because MetaMask would rarely ask you, well, would never ever ask you for your 20 words. And they in fact tell you that when they signed up. But people fell for the scam, and they lost millions of value in NFTs. I've got quite a bit to say about regulations and the legislation that's anticipated. I just want to mention to you that what people who offer NFTs will be called, or kind of in the financial world, if you were to trade NFTs or any crypto asset and give advice in relation to it, you're known as a CASP, a crypto asset service provider, and towards the end of this year will be regulated. So I'm just going to stop the share for now, and let me see if there are any questions. I saw a hand go up.
There was one question that came through from Greg, which was, how can I transfer control of a crypto wallet to the next generation or next of kin?
Guys, that's a very, very good question. And I'll tell you where you transfer it by giving your next of kin access to your private key. That's why I said you should have your 20 words probably next to your will. But because this is a new world, and because this blockchain conceivably is going to be around in 500 years' time, another consideration is, if you're going to be starting a company, or you have a company, and you're going to be purchasing these NFTs in the name of the company, you got to ask yourself, will the company in fact be around 5 years' time? Will you have a wallet that's being paid all those commissions, those royalties, and take the Nelson Mandela or the rhino horn or the gun pen? They're going to be paying out every time there's a transfer. Now, what if the company goes into liquidation? Will the company in liquidation have to remain in liquidation forever, because it'll be collecting these NFTs? So some of the advice we give, particularly to the small startups, is, guys, when it comes to building the smart contracts into the NFTs, consider actually putting the recipient of the smart contracts in the name of the shareholders, so that all in the name of the shareholders' trusts, even better, because then that trust will survive you, it'll survive the next generation, the next 20 generations, and your private key, very, very important, will remain intact and will pass down, and you won't have those issues.
So without that private key, if you've lost that private key, you've lost it, it's done, you've lost your NFT.
It's deadly. There's a guy, I think last I looked, he's got about $270 million of Bitcoin, because back in the day, everybody thought this Bitcoin was a joke. You pay several cents per Bitcoin. And the tech guys were creating nodes. It was easy to mine for Bitcoins back then. And they were creating these nodes and they were just getting this Bitcoin, but they weren't quite sure where this was going. So they'd create thousands of these Bitcoins, they'd store them on their PCs, but they would think nothing of it. Then 2017 happened, and the price went from a few cents to this year, as you know, it hit about $65 for a Bitcoin. So those guys are really, I mean, I don't know how they're living with themselves. This guy on his hard drive, it's called the vault or something like that. You got 10 goes to guess your password to get to your private keys, and he's on his 9th go. If he gets the 10th go wrong, that hard drive's deleted and his private keys go.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's quite serious.
It's extremely, extremely serious. It's one of the criticisms when it comes to the operability of blockchain, because what you have with a bank is you do have a trusted intermediary who can mediate. In fact, banks, I think, are going to really play more of this mediatory role in the future, but at the moment, they mediate the disputes in relation to such transfers. They can stop them, they can reverse them, whereas you can't. If you accidentally pay or transfer an asset into the wrong wallet, you've lost it. You can't undo that.
Wow. Okay, there was another one that came through from Romy, which I think is more of a statement than a question. So an NFT is an exclusive piece of artwork once off. This is bought by whoever may see value in the piece. However, it could be copied, like a picture could be taken of a piece such as Mona Lisa, yet the original is never owned by anyone else unless the original buyer or artist sells it.
Correct. So what the original is the one that's going to hold the value. A lot of people are doing collections, let's say, of 10, but the original, the first, number one, as we know, because it's the scarcest, you'll only get one of one. That will get certified by NFT auditors as the first, as the original. And even though you'll get millions of copies out there, like the Mona Lisa on postcards, you will own the original, and that will be confirmed by the NFT ID. I see here there's also, can you explain mining for Bitcoins in practical terms? It's hell of an interesting, but the way it works is they built into the algorithm, the way what miners have to do is they have to find a number. They have to find a number that is above a certain number. And we're talking numbers in the trillions. So what they do is they use these graphic cards, these high, powerful graphic cards that now cost tens of thousands of rands to find that number. And if you find that number, you get your Bitcoin. So the first person who gets that number will get the Bitcoins. They make money there. And you also make money by hosting, and you also get a share of the gas fees. When you transfer a crypto, it costs. Okay, on some new blockchains, it doesn't, like Polygon. But on the Ethereum blockchain, when you transfer, it's called a gas fee that gets paid. And the nodes, the people that are hosting the data, share in that.
Okay, we've got one that says from Dion, you had mentioned Luno previously. How does Luno differ from MTI?
Which is MTI? I'm not familiar with MTI.
I don't know, Dion, do you
just Google it?
Shall we see if we can unmute you?
Yeah, Gail.
Oh, crikey, it's a scandal. It's the same. Sorry, we're actually dealing with it. In fact, I'm meeting this afternoon. I think it's in relation to it. It's the same. So these exchanges can get hacked. They store your private keys. Another thing that happens is the owners of the exchanges run away with the private keys. So those are two types of hacks. The actual owner, they move to Brazil, they take your private keys, and they own your digital assets with it. Because I went to the internet, I saw that I had the video open of, I mentioned to you that for the king, what we did is we actually created a metaverse of his heritage site. that heritage site is outside Pretoria, but it's 1 minute. So I'll quickly show this video and I'll show you how there's a museum there and how you can actually buy NFTs in the museum. So let me just share the screen. I'll be very quick.
Welcome to Alkebulan and journey into our African digiverse. An Indibele Kingdom experience at the heart of Komjekejeke Heritage Site. A digital photorealistic walkthrough that holds the history of Indibele people, culture, artifacts, and art. Displaying the Indibele collection in an effort to preserve African heritage. Proudly endorsed by His Majesty King Makhosoke II of the Amandebele.
I see somebody just raised their hand.
That was a very impressive video.
Yeah, so that video, sorry, that video represents a metaverse. That's what everybody's talking about at the moment. That's where Facebook changed their name to Meta. We're going to be interacting. That's going to be the new internet, where we're going to be meeting with people. We don't necessarily know who they are. We socialize, we buy, and buy, let's say, Take a Lot there. It's total private. Let's say you were to buy from Take a Lot there, the driver could just present a QR code, add an address, and we'll never have to know who the purchaser of the product is. These metaverses are going to be linked to one another. So we've also been asked to do Robben Island and create a metaverse out of Robben Island. The Robben Island can be linked to Akabulan. And Akabulan, those two metaverses, can be linked to AfriRare, which is a local one that's being built by colleagues of ours. And they can all be linked, and then ultimately, hopefully, linked to Facebook, the Facebook metaverse.
Brilliant. Oh, there's another question that we've got here. Are the NFTs being traded on the Binance exchange also been audited?
No, I don't think it's the auditing space is new. I mean, the fact that we got NFTauditors.com as a web address in our mind means the whole world's been falling asleep at the wheel. We now acting for international companies. We got an instruction from the UAE. In fact, it was an art instruction to NFT government art in the UAE, and to assist them with the minting of it, because we have a tech team who can. But importantly, they reached out to NFT auditors to prepare audit reports. What we also do is, for each audit report, we also assign an integrity officer who the NFT purchaser of the art can phone to confirm that what's being said is in fact true and that the audit report is legit.
Okay, I see we're running out of time, but we still got a couple of questions. Are you all right to stay on for another few minutes, Maurice?
Yeah, no, I'm fine. So have a look. The NFT is linked to the original piece, even though sometimes the owner of the NFT do not own the original piece. Therefore, is it right to assume that people who buy an NFT and hope that they will turn to something of value in the future? Yes, well, that's what everybody's doing. Everybody's speculating. I am concerned that what we're seeing at the moment is analogous to the tulip bubble 300 years ago. The value of these NFTs at the moment is really, you buy the NFT and you're pretty sure that you're going to get a higher value in a couple of days' time because of all the hype. NFTs at the moment, if you put an NFT on an exchange like OpenSea, you're not going to sell it. You have to create community and you've got to create hype. And the hype is really what's driving the prices up. What is happening now, which is in my mind legit and there is value, is they're selling land NFTs in these metaverses. So a metaverse like Sandbox or Decentraland, have a look at Decentraland. The land there that you're buying will always be yours. And that metaverse hopefully will always be around. Something I saw something about best way.
Oh, there we go. What would it be the best way to become the industry on NFTs for insurance companies?
It's just get to understand the space. The problem, I don't know if it's a problem, but it's what's nice about the NFT blockchain space is people are, for some reason, there's a block when it comes to understanding, excuse the pun. And it's just about understanding it. And the courses out there, I'd recommend that you go onto Coursera, they're free courses on blockchain, and just to understand it. It actually isn't that higher grade. The NFT space is not complicated. The legal rights space is where it starts becoming difficult. But if you wanted to mint an NFT, it's relatively simple to do that. That's why I said to Gogh, I can mint an NFT this afternoon. That's the easy part. But what we'll be doing is we'll actually be coming through, we'll be scanning the art car, and we'll be creating that very first NFT that presumably will hold value. Who knows? I think it may very well.
Now, you've definitely given us a lot to think about. I think there's probably a few minds out there that have been completely blown with what is happening and what is coming, and how many industries that this could impact, and ways that it can be used, and opportunities. It's incredible.
I see 2 participants raise their hands if you want to come on.
Carol Walters, you can unmute yourself if you'd like to ask a question. And Dale.
I see here maybe the way of the future. I can't emphasize more that this is the future. The moment you start going into smart contracts, think of this. At the moment, I got to collect rental from my tenant. In the future, I'm going to have, it's known as the Internet of Things, I'm going to have a smart lock that will only unlock the door if the rental gets paid. There's no trusted intermediary because the smart contract doesn't require a human. So you don't pay the rental, the door doesn't open. Now, this is going to permeate every single industry. It's really to cut the human factor out, because the human becomes the problem when it comes to transactions.
That was actually one of the things that David Leon raised. Isn't one of the reasons for decentralization to exclude the need for banks, lawyers, and auditors? Why would an auditor be required?
So yeah, that's a great question. Auditors are on their way out. They really, really are. Auditors, our accounting system works on a double entry system. What the blockchain has introduced is a triple entry system. So company A and company B here get audited. Now, what happens is the auditors of company A have to verify that those transactions are legit and talk to the debits and credits in company B. So there are 2 audits that have to take place. Now, the triple entry system involves a ledger on the blockchain, which sits in between. So company A's transaction is recorded on the blockchain, and company's B transaction is recorded on the blockchain. So you have a dynamic audit. The audit takes place continuously. If the 2 transactions don't talk to one another, then there's a problem. So that's a good example of an industry that's going to be completely killed by blockchain, including attorneys, incidentally. Commercial attorneys who do not work in the NFT space, smart contract space, I don't believe in 5 years' time can actually call themselves commercial attorneys.
Wow, definitely a lot to think about.
Yeah.
So Maurice, looks exciting for you, but any of your colleagues that are looking for a job at iTOO in the future, you know where to come. And we do have actually a team of experts at iTOO that are brainstorming about ideas to say, how do we insure NFTs? There's a cyber risk, and Maurice, you've gone through a lot of the risks and things that can go wrong. So we are thinking about it and applying our expert minds. And while we're doing that, quite an exciting little post. So if you all want to answer that post, good to get some understanding about your ownership and interest in owning NFTs. And as you can see here, we're saying that I think it's a great idea for iTOO to launch some of our own NFTs. We've got some ideas around that, and we're going to be doing that. So watch out for that in the future. While you're doing the poll, I would like to say a special welcome to some of the team from Art Insure in Europe. We have Gordon Massey, we have Alex, and we have Maurizio from UK, Spain, and Germany. So great to have you with us. And a special welcome to some of our partners, SCORE. So iTOO has partnered with SCOR, one of the biggest and very well-known global reinsurance companies, and we're underwriting on their paper in Europe. And I think we have Rupert Onslow on the call, who's an expert art underwriter from SCOR. So Rupert, very good to have you. And if you're still on, it would be great to have some of your comments. As an experienced underwriter, what is your view on NFTs? But really good, and thank you to some of the team from SCOR for joining us. And let's see the results of the poll. It would be great to see what you're doing. And Maurice, thank you so much. We don't have to end off, but I just wanted to get that in briefly before people start leaving. But I see we still have great attendance, so great to have some continued discussions.
And yeah, to all the thank yous coming through, it's only an absolute pleasure. If you want me to jump into a think tank around the creative side of things, I'd love to, because as I said, the opportunities are endless. If you jump into the space now, you're actually going to be one of the early people. I think there are only 2 million people in the world that are in the NFT space. Now imagine when that starts hitting the billions. And
Maurice, we would definitely like to take you up on that offer to get involved in a creative think tank around NFTs. And I see Gordon has his hand up.
Thanks, Justin, Gail. Maurice, thank you. That's the second time that I've heard some of this, and it's I'm starting to understand it a little bit better. My brain is a bit slow when it comes to NFTs. But we're seeing a number of commercial dealers around the world who are getting seriously involved in NFTs. My colleague Alex, who's on the line here somewhere, he watched a German sale, which was just NFTs by a commercial art dealer. There are commercial art dealers in South Africa who are getting actively involved as part of their overall stock, and in the UK and in France and America, etc. So I think that the art and crypto insurance world really needs to be able to respond to this. And I think that we need to go beyond thinking of physical damage only or crypto only, because this is going across those borders and come together to do a really innovative product in the art world.
Yeah, Gordon, just to mention, there's a live auction in Cape Town at the Grand next weekend. That's where our piece is being sold. But Norman Catherine pieces have been sold on other auctions, and there's other art, NFT art, that's being sold at that auction. So it's it's happening.
Yeah. And there's another gallery in Cape Town, World Art, who's really pushing these now. Very on a worldwide basis, because this is there's no borders.
No borders, absolutely.
Good stuff. I think that probably brings us to the end. Maurice, thank you very much, and we'll definitely take you up on the offer. And
the second one, Justin, sorry to interrupt, is Gail, please reach out. I'd love to scan the car. Let's create that NFT as soon as possible.
Brilliant. We'll definitely do
so
that.
just let me know. Let's arrange.
We just need to find, we just need to make sure it's available, and
Yeah, we probably need about 2 hours.
Great.
We will do that for sure.
Thank you, and thank you for that offer. Great. And it was really, really, really great listening. I know we have spoken before, but it was still fascinating to hear from you again. So again, thank you very much for joining us and for doing this talk for us today.
Yeah, thanks everyone. This is great. I'm glad everybody's in the space. It's part of South Africa's digital revitalization strategy. So we all have a duty. We're ahead already in the NFT space and the auditing space. Let's keep it that way.
Good stuff. Thank you, Maurice.
Right.
And thank you all to all of the brokers that have joined us for a really great and interesting session. The best yet so far. And watch the space. iTOO is certainly exploring.
Justin, we've got one last question if we can sneak it in. Bernard, Bernard, please go ahead.
Yes, sorry, thank you for unmuting me. I wanted to type it, but it's going to be an essay if I type it. So my question is can I link this to any physical item? Let's say, for example, because a comic book. Can I link it to a comic book sale?
Absolutely. So that is the nasty, is the NFT asset sale transaction instruments. So you create an NFT that talks to the real world asset, and transfer of the NFT represents transfer of ownership of that asset. And you can also fractionalize that comic book. You can make it You can sell a million NFTs, meaning that you buy 1/1,000,000th of the comic book. But that's going to be that is going to be where there's going to be a lot of activity in the legal NFT world.
Okay.
You can also set out the rights of the NFTs to that physical object.
Thank you very much. That answers my question, Maurice. I hope the next session we have, I know a little bit more than you do, because I'm most definitely going to do some research on this. Thank you very much.
Do that Coursera course. It's invaluable, and it's super, super interesting. Do the first 30 minutes and see whether it pulls you in.
100%. Thank you very much, guys.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Okay.
Thank you. And I think on that note.
Well done, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Paolo. Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Always put your videos on and